Chapter 1. My Only Son. My name is John Parker. I'm an old man now, but when I close my eyes, I see one picture again and again. It is the day my son was born. That day, I felt like life had given me the biggest gift. My wife held the baby in her arms. She looked at me with tears and a smile, and I whispered, "He is ours, our son, our Daniel." I had no money, no wealth, but I felt rich because I had him. From the first day, we promised ourselves one thing. We would give him a better life than ours. We had lived a life of struggle, but he would not. I remember nights when we had little food. My wife would push her plate toward me and say, "Eat, John." But I could see her eyes. She was hungry. I pushed it back and said, "No, you eat." Then we both looked at the baby in the cradle, and we said together, "He must eat first. He must grow strong. He must never feel hunger like us." I worked in a small factory. My back often hurt, but I never stopped. My wife sewed clothes for neighbors until her fingers were sore. Many nights we stayed awake counting coins, thinking how to pay school fees, how to buy books. Sometimes we had nothing left for ourselves, but we never complained. We looked at Daniel's face and told each other, "This is worth it." I remember one winter evening. Daniel said, "Dad, I need new shoes for school." My heart sank because I had no money. That night, I took an extra shift. I carried heavy boxes until midnight. My body was tired, but I kept thinking of his little feet. The next morning, I placed the shoes on his bed. When he saw them, he jumped with joy and hugged me. He said, "Dad, you are the best." At that moment, all my pain disappeared. Another time, Daniel's school planned a trip. He came running and said, "Dad, please let me go." Everyone is going. I knew we had no money. That night, my wife took off her necklace. It was the only piece of gold she had from our wedding. She sold it quietly. She put the money in my hand and said, "Do not tell him. Just say yes." The next morning, I smiled at him and said, "Go, son, enjoy yourself." He hugged us both and shouted, "Thank you." My wife turned her face away so he would not see her tears. On his birthdays, we saved coins for months. We bought a small cake, sometimes just one candle. When he blew it, we clapped like children. We sang for him. We laughed. We forgot our hunger and pain. I can still hear his voice saying, "Dad, Mom, this is the best day." Those words were more precious than gold. One day, he won a prize at school for handwriting. He came home with a small trophy. He held it high and shouted, "I did it." I lifted him in my arms. My wife kissed his forehead. Neighbors came and clapped. I felt proud as if he had become a great man already. That night, I could not sleep, not from worry, but from happiness. Sometimes people ask me, "John, why you work so hard? Why do you never rest?" I always said because I have a son, because he will live a better life than me. My wife often whispered to me, "He is our future, John. He will shine. He will remember what we did for him." I nodded and held her hand. We believed it. We believed love never goes to waste. When Daniel was little, he loved us deeply. After school, he ran into his mother's arms. He said, "Mom, guess what happened today?" He sat with me in the market, holding my hand tightly. He laughed at my silly jokes. He often said, "Dad, when I grow up, I will buy you a big house. I will make you proud." Those words were music to my ears. But time does not stop. Children grow fast. I did not notice when he became a young man. He started talking about big dreams, about the city, about a better future. I knew it meant he would leave us one day. My heart became heavy, but I smiled. I told him, "Go, son, study, make your future. We will always pray for you." My wife's eyes filled with tears. But she also said, "Go, Daniel. We are always with you." That night after he slept, we sat together in silence. She whispered, "I wish he would never go." I said softly, "But we cannot keep him. Our love must give him wings. We want him to fly higher than us." We both looked at his sleeping face. I touched his hair and said in my heart, "Please, son, never forget us. Wherever you go, do not forget the hand that raised you." Those were the golden years of my life. The years when my son was small, when his laughter filled the house, when his smile made every pain disappear. I thought those days would last forever. I was wrong. Chapter 2. Dreams for his future. Those golden years passed quickly. Daniel was no longer the small boy who ran into our arms. He was growing into a young man. His voice was deeper. His thoughts were bigger. He started talking about things we had never spoken about. He said often, "Dad, I want to do something great. I don't want to stay small." Every time he said those words, I felt both proud and afraid. Proud because my son was aiming high. Afraid because I knew aiming high meant leaving us behind. One evening after dinner, he said softly, "Dad, my teacher says I must study in the city. If I go there, I can get a good future. Please let me go." My wife froze for a moment. She looked down at her hands. I kept quiet for a while. My heart was heavy, but then she forced a smile and said, "Of course, son. You must go. You must grow." I nodded and put my hand on his shoulder. "Yes, Daniel, we will manage. You just study well." My voice was steady, but inside something broke. From that day, our life became harder. We had to save more money. I worked double shifts at the factory. My body often shook from pain, but I kept telling myself, "This is for my son." My wife sewed late into the night, her eyes burning, her fingers bleeding, but she said, "It is nothing. He must have what he needs." Many times we ate very little, sometimes only bread, but we never complained. We always told each other, "This is for Daniel." One evening, Daniel came and said, "Dad, I need new books. They are expensive." I had no money left that week. I begged the factory manager for extra work. He said, "John, you're already weak. You cannot do this." I answered, "I am a dad. I must." That night, I worked until my arms shook. In the morning, I placed the books on the table. Daniel smiled and hugged me. "Dad, you are the best." My eyes filled, but I turned away quickly so he would not see. Another time, he said, "Dad, everyone is joining a coaching class. I don't want to be left behind." I looked at my wife. She went to the bedroom and came back with her only pair of gold earrings, a gift from her mother. She pressed them into my hand and whispered, "Sell these. Our son must not feel less than others." My chest grew heavy, but I sold them. The next day, I gave Daniel the money. He laughed and said, "Dad, you never say no." My wife turned her face away. Tears rolled down, but she smiled for him. There were also happy moments. Once Daniel came home with a medal. He shouted, "Dad, Mom, I came first in debate." We clapped and hugged him tightly. That night, hunger did not matter. We only spoke about his bright future. My wife looked at me and said, "John, our son will make us proud. He will do what we could never do." I answered, "Yes, he will. He will shine." Still, fear grew inside me. I knew the day was coming when he would leave for the city. One night, while he slept, my wife whispered, "I cannot imagine this house without him." I held her hand and said, "We raise him to fly. We must be strong when he leaves." She wiped her eyes but said nothing. Soon the day came. Daniel packed a small bag. He hugged us and said, "Dad, Mom, don't worry. I will study hard. I will make you proud." My wife kissed his forehead again and again, whispering, "Take care, son." I held him tight and said, "Never forget us. Wherever you go, remember who raised you." He smiled, but he did not understand the depth of my words. And then he left. We stood at the door, watching him walk away. My wife's tears fell silently. I put my arm around her and said, "He will come back soon." But deep inside, I knew life was about to change forever. Please don't forget to like, share, subscribe to our channel, English for Day. Chapter 3, The Empty Chairs. When Daniel left the city, our home fell silent. For many years, our evenings were full of his laughter. But now the chairs looked empty. I still place an extra chair outside every evening. I told myself, he might come today. My wife often stood near the window, whispering, maybe he will return this weekend. But days passed and weeks passed, and he did not come. At first he called often. Every night he would say, "Dad, Mom, I miss you. I am studying hard." We felt happy hearing his voice. We waited for those calls. But slowly the calls became shorter. Sometimes he said, "Dad, I am busy. I will talk later." Sometimes he forgot completely. My wife sat holding the phone for hours, but it stayed silent. She said softly, "Maybe tomorrow he will call." I answered yes tomorrow, but I knew tomorrow might not come. One evening I dialed his number myself. He answered quickly, but his voice was rushed. He said, "Dad, I am with friends. Can I call you later?" I said, "Yes, son. Enjoy." When I hung up, my chest felt heavy. I looked at my wife and said, "He is busy." She smiled weakly, but later I saw her wiping her tears with her scarf. Festivals were the hardest. Every year, we decorated the house with lights. We cooked his favorite food. We told ourselves, this time he will surprise us. But he never came. My wife placed 2 extra plates on the table anyway. She whispered, "Maybe he will walk in." I said, "Yes, maybe." But the plate stayed full and the food turned cold. After dinner, she cried quietly. I put my hand on her shoulder and said, "He will come next year." But in my heart, I knew the truth. Birthdays were also painful. Once my wife baked a small cake. She placed a candle and said, "It is Daniel's birthday. We must celebrate." We both sang softly, though he was not there. She whispered, "Happy birthday, son." Then she blew the candle herself and cried. I held her close and said, "He will call soon." That night, the phone did ring, but it was only a short message. "Dad, sorry I was busy. Happy birthday to me." We stared at the words for a long time. Even neighbors noticed our waiting. One old neighbor asked me, "John, does your son visit often?" I forced a smile and said, "Yes, he is busy, but he will come." Inside, my heart broke again. Still, we never cursed him. We prayed for him every night. My wife often said, "I hope he's eating well. I hope he is happy." I nodded and said, "Yes, he must be fine." We wanted nothing from him. No money, no gifts. We only wanted his time, his presence, his voice. One evening I said to her, "Maybe we should go and visit him." She shook her head. "No, John. If he needs us, he will call. We will not disturb him." Her words were strong, but her eyes were full of pain. The hardest part was when he missed important days. Once I fell sick. My wife sent him a letter saying, "Your dad is weak. Come home if you can." He did not come. He called after many days and said, "Dad, I am sorry. I had exams." I told him, "It is fine, son. Study well." But when I put the phone down, I felt a deep cut in my heart. Another time, my wife fainted in the kitchen. The doctor came and gave her medicine. She whispered, "Don't tell Daniel. He will worry." But I knew the truth. She was afraid he would not come even if we told him. She did not want to feel that pain. Slowly, Our house became a house of waiting. The chairs were empty. The phone was quiet. The letters we sent were unanswered for weeks. My wife still stood by the window every evening. She whispered the same words, maybe today. I sat beside her and said, yes, today? But in my heart, I asked myself, does he still remember us the way we remember him? Those were the days of hope mixed with pain. We lived only on memories. Memories of his laughter, his hugs, his promises. I held on to those memories like treasure because the present was full of silence. Chapter 4. A new life. A busy Sundays turn into months and months into years. Our house stayed quiet, but my son's life in the city was moving fast. We heard about it from his short calls and sometimes from his letters. He said, Dad, work is busy. Mom, I hardly get time to rest. We listened to his words, but in our hearts we wished he would still make time for us. One day he called and said, Dad, I got a new job. The pay is good. I will have a better life now. I felt proud and said, that is wonderful, son. Keep working hard. My wife whispered, congratulations, Daniel. We are happy for you. But after the call, she held my hand and said softly, John, did you notice? He did not ask about us. He only spoke about work. I sighed and said, he is young. Work is his world now. But he will remember us. Later, he wrote a letter saying, Dad, I bought a small car. Mom, now I can travel faster. I am moving into a better apartment. We showed the letter to neighbors with pride. Look, I said, our son is doing well. But when the neighbors left, we looked at each other in silence. My wife said, he has everything there. But what about us? Does he think of the small home? I answered, he must. Deep inside. He must soon. He called again. Dad, I met someone. She is kind. We will marry soon. My wife cried happy tears and said, I'm glad, son. I wish we could be there. He replied, it is a small ceremony. Don't worry. I will send pictures. When the line went silent, my wife held the phone and whispered, he got married without us. He wanted us there when he was a child. But now we are only watching from far. I cannot stop my own tears. But I told her at least he is happy. That is what matters. Time passed. He had a child. He called and said, Dad, I have a baby boy. I am a father now. I was filled with joy. I wanted to hold that little one. I wanted to see my grandson's face. My wife said with a trembling voice, Daniel, please bring him home. Let us see him. Once Daniel said quickly, Mom, travel is difficult now. Later I will come. Later never came. We sat with hope, imagining the sound of a baby in our house. But the room stayed silent. Festivals became even harder. We lit candles, cooked food, and prayed. My wife whispered every time, maybe this year he will come with his wife and child. But he never came. Instead, a parcel arrived at the door. It had sweets, clothes, and a short note. Dad and Mom, happy festival. Sorry I could not come. My wife touched the clothes with tears in her eyes. She said, gifts are not our son. I want to see his face. I held her close and said, I know. I want that, too. Even our neighbors started asking questions. One woman asked my wife, has your son not visited in years? Does he not miss you? My wife forced a smile and replied, he is busy. He will come when he can. But after the woman left, she cried in my arms. She said, John, people think he has forgotten us. Tell me, has he? I could not answer. I tried calling him once to ask if he could visit for a weekend. He said, Dad, work is too much. Travel is hard. I will try later. I asked softly, Son, do you remember how your mother waits by the window? He was silent for a moment, then said, Tell Mom not to worry. I will come when things are easier. I wanted to believe him, but deep down I knew those words were only promises. My wife kept her hope alive. She said, "One day he will bring our grandson here. One day this house will be full again." I nodded, though inside I feared that day would never come. I told her, yes, he will come. He will remember. But every evening the chair outside stayed empty and the window stayed quiet. We did not stop praying for him. We never cursed him. We said every night, "May our son be healthy. May his family stay safe." Because even when children forget, parents cannot. Love is not a deal. Love is sacrifice. And so while he built a new life full of work, money, and family, our old life stood still. We were only waiting. Waiting for a call. Waiting for a visit. Waiting for the sound of his footsteps at the door. Waiting became our daily habit. Please don't forget to like, share, subscribe to our channel, English for a Day. Chapter 5. Letters that were never answered after Daniel's marriage and the birth of his child. His calls became even fewer. My wife and I still waited, but the silence grew heavier. She said one evening, "John, I cannot just sit here. I will write to him." I nodded. Her hands shook as she held the pen, but her heart poured out. She wrote, "My dear son, we miss you. The house is empty without you. Please come and visit." Even for one day when the letter was done, she folded it carefully, kissed it softly, and said, "Maybe this will touch his heart." I placed my hand on hers and whispered, "Yes, maybe this will bring him home." Days passed. We waited for his reply. At last, an envelope arrived. My wife opened it quickly. Inside was only a short line. "Mom, Dad, I am very busy. I will try later." She held the paper close to her chest and said, "At least he replied." But I could see her tears falling. She began to write more letters. Each one was full of love. She reminded him of his childhood. She told him, "Your dad still puts a chair outside for you. I still wait by the window." Sometimes she added small requests. "Send us a photo of your son. We want to see our grandson's face." Weeks passed before replies came, and when they did, they were cold. "Mom, I will send later." Or, "Dad, don't worry. Everything is fine here." One night, I found her sitting alone with a letter in her lap. She whispered, "John, do you think he reads him carefully? Do you think he understands my heart?" I sat beside her and said, "He must. Deep down, he must." But inside, I knew his world was moving too fast to stop for our letters. Birthdays were especially hard. On Daniel's birthday, my wife baked a small cake. She lit a candle and said, "Happy birthday, son." She blew the candle herself and cried. Later, she wrote him, "Today I baked a cake for you. I wish you were here to cut it." The reply came many days later. "Thanks, Mom. I was busy at work." She held the paper, read it again and again, and said softly, "At least he thought of me enough to reply." I too wrote once. I said, "Son, your mother's health is not strong. Please come if you can." His answer came 2 weeks later. "Dad, give Mom my love. I cannot travel now. Work is heavy." I folded the letter and placed it away. I told my wife, "He sends his love." She nodded, but her eyes told the truth. She was breaking inside. One evening, she fainted while holding the pen. I rushed to her side. When she woke, she whispered, "Do not tell Daniel. He will worry." But I knew the truth. She did not want to face the pain of writing and waiting again. Yet the next morning she sat back at the table, her hand weak but determined. She said, "Maybe one more letter will bring him." The hardest moment was when she wrote about our anniversary. She said, "Daniel, today your dad and I completed another year together. We celebrated alone. We only wished you were here to eat with us." That letter never got a reply. She waited for weeks, checking the mailbox every day. Finally, she said, maybe he forgot. Maybe he is too busy. She smiled weakly, but her voice was full of sorrow. I could not watch her pain anymore. One night, I told her, stop writing love. It hurts you too much. She looked at me and said, I cannot stop. He is my son. If he does not hear my voice on the phone, at least he will see my words on paper. One day, maybe one letter will touch his heart. And so she kept writing letter after letter, words full of love, hope, and longing, letters that carried the weight of a mother's heart, letters that crossed miles but never truly reached his soul. Those were the letters that were never answered the way we hoped. They gave us small moments of hope, but more often they left us with silence. Still, we never stop because parents never stop. Love keeps moving even when replies do not. Chapter 6, The Window of Waiting. My wife's letters became fewer. Her body was weaker now. Her hands shook when she held the pen. Many times she asked me, John, will Daniel come if I write again? I smiled and said, yes, write, love. Maybe this one will reach his heart. But deep inside I was afraid that her letters would keep meeting the same silence. Her health started to fall. She coughed often. She could not eat much. Still, every evening she stood near the window. She would pull the curtain gently and whisper, maybe today he will come. Maybe today I will see him walking through the gate. I stood behind her. I wanted to say he is busy. He will not come, but I could not. I only said yes, maybe today. One evening, she sat on a chair near the window for hours. I touched her shoulder and said, come rest. She shook her head. No, John, my son will come today. I feel it. I stayed silent. When night came, she looked at the empty street and whispered with tears, maybe tomorrow. Then I helped her back to bed. She cried quietly. I held her hand and said, one day, love, one day he will come. I tried calling Daniel myself. I said, son, your mother is not well. She asks about you every day. Please come. His voice was tired. Dad, I cannot. Work is heavy. The baby is small. Travel is not easy. Tell Mom I love her. I closed my eyes and said softly, yes, son, I will tell her. When I hung up, I felt a deep cut in my heart. I told my wife he send his love. She smiled weakly and whispered, at least he remembers. But the truth was clear. He was far away, lost in his world. We were here, waiting. One morning, my wife woke early. She dressed slowly, combed her hair, and said, John, today he will come. I had a dream last night. I saw him walking to me. I looked at her tired face. Her eyes were shining with hope. I could not break her heart. I only said, yes, maybe dreams come true. She sat near the window all day. Evening came. No one came. She closed her eyes and whispered, dreams are only dreams. Another evening, she was too weak to stand. Still, she asked me, take me to the window. I helped her slowly. She held the frame and looked out. Her voice was soft. If he comes and I am not here, how will I see him? I must wait here. My eyes filled with tears. I said, love, you will see him. You will do not lose hope. Her health kept falling. She could not walk much. She coughed through the night. But even in her pain, she spoke of Daniel. John, do you think he eats well? Do you think he wears warm clothes? Do you think his wife takes care of him? I nodded. Yes, he is fine. He has a good life. Do not worry. She closed her eyes and whispered, that is enough for me. On her birthday, she baked a small bread with her shaking hands. She placed it on the table and said, I wish Daniel was here. He used to clap when I baked. She cut it in two and gave me half. Eat, John. Let us celebrate anyway. Tears rolled down my face as we ate in silence. One night, she woke me and said, John, do you remember how we used to hold your hand in the market? Do you remember how we hugged me after school? I miss those days. I held her close and said, yes, I remember. I will never forget. She cried in my arms, whispering, if only he remembered. 2. I wrote Daniel again. I said, son, your mother is very weak. She waits at the window every evening. Please come before it is too late. His reply came after many days. It was short. Dad, I cannot travel now. Tell Mom I will come later. I read the words again and again. I could not show them to her. Instead, I told her he is planning to come soon. She smiled and whispered, thank you, John. That is all I needed. Weeks passed. Her body grew thinner, but still every evening she said the same words. Maybe today. She held on to that hope like it was her last breath. I looked at her and thought, love, your hope is breaking you, but it is also keeping you alive. One evening, as the sun was setting, she leaned against the window frame and whispered with all her strength, Daniel, your mom is waiting. Then she looked at me and said, John, if he comes tomorrow, promise me you will tell him I waited here. Promise me you will tell him I never stopped waiting. My voice broke, but I said, I promise. That was the window of waiting. A window filled with love, hope, and pain. A window where my wife gave her last strength every day, believing her son would appear, but he never did. Please don't forget to like, share, subscribe to our channel, English for Day. Chapter 7, Too Late to Return. Her body had become so weak that she could hardly walk. Still, every evening she whispered, take me to the window. I held her carefully and helped her sit by the chair. She looked outside with tired eyes and whispered, maybe today, maybe my son will come. I held her hand and said softly, yes, maybe today. Inside my heart broke a little more every time. One night, she was lying on the bed. She turned to me and said, John, I know my time is short, but promise me one thing. If Daniel comes tomorrow, tell him I waited. Tell him I never stopped waiting. I pressed her hand and whispered, I promise love. He will know. She closed her eyes and whispered, thank you. The next morning, she was very still. I called her name again and again, love, wake up, but she did not answer. I touched her face. It was cold. My heart sank. I cried loudly. No, please not now. Please wait a little longer. He will come. But she had already gone. I sat beside her body, holding her hand, whispering, he will come. You will see him. Just open your eyes. Once tears rolled down my face. I could not stop them. I felt like half of me had died with her. I sent a message to Daniel. Son, your mother has passed away. Come home. Hours later, he called. His voice was shocked. Dad, no, this cannot be. I wanted to come next month. I wanted to see her. I said with a broken voice. She waited, son. She waited every day. But you did not come. He cried on the phone. Dad, please forgive me. I will come tomorrow. I could not reply. My voice was gone. The funeral happened quietly. Neighbors stood with me. I placed her to rest with my own hands. I whispered, love, I kept my promise. I will tell him you waited. My body shook as I said those words. The next day, Daniel came. He entered the house with tears in his eyes. He saw her empty chair near the window. He touched it and cried, Mom, I am here. Forgive me. Please forgive me. I stood beside him and said with a heavy heart, she waited there every evening. She wanted to see you walk in, but you came too late. He fell on his knees and cried like a child. He went to her grave and placed his hand on the stone. He said again and again, "Mom, I am sorry. I should have come earlier. I will never forgive myself." His voice broke. His tears fell on the ground. I stood behind him silent, my own tears flowing. That night, he sat with me. He said, "Dad, I was wrong." I kept saying later, 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 but later never came. I thought she would always be there. I thought I had time, but I lost her. I cannot bear this. I looked at him and said softly, "Son, money can build a house, but only love builds a life. You forgot the hand that raised you, and now you carry this pain." He cried and said, "Dad, I will change. I will not forget again." But the truth was clear. He had already been too late. His promises now could not bring her back. Her empty chair, her letters, her window of waiting, all were silent forever. I held his hand and said, "Son, I forgive you, because a father cannot hate his child. But I pray you will never forget this pain. Let it teach you that parents are not forever. Time does not wait." He cried in my arms like the small boy he once was. That was the day he learned the cost of forgetting. And that was the day I lost the love of my life. Chapter 8, the lesson I leave behind. After her death, the house felt empty in a way I cannot describe. The window where she waited was now just glass. The chair where she sat was only wood. But to me, they still carried her presence. I often found myself turning and saying, "Love, he will come today." And then I remembered she was gone. Daniel stayed with me for a few days after the funeral. He cried often. Sometimes he walked to the window and touched it gently. Sometimes he sat on her chair and whispered, "Mom, I know you waited. I know you loved me until your last breath. I should have come sooner." His voice was full of pain. His tears never stopped. One night, he said to me, "Dad, how did you bear all this? How did you watch her wait every day? How did you not hate me for being late?" I looked at him and said, "Son, a father cannot hate his child." But I cannot deny the truth either. You were late. She gave all her life for you, and you were not here when she needed you most. He broke down and said, "I will live with this guilt forever." I held his hand and said, "Then let this guilt teach you. Let it change you." Slowly, I saw changes in him. He began calling me more often. He came to visit whenever he could. He sat with me and listened when I spoke. He said one day, "Dad, I will never let you feel the way Mom felt. I will not let you wait like that." I looked at him and whispered, "I hope so, son. I truly hope so." But even with his promises, the emptiness in my heart remained. At night, I often heard her voice in my memories. I remembered her words. "Tell him I never stopped waiting." Sometimes I spoke aloud to the empty room. "Yes, love, I told him. He knows now." Daniel tried to make up for the past. He brought me gifts. He said, "Dad, I want to take you to the city. You will stay with me." I shook my head. "No, son, my place is here. This house holds your mother's love. I cannot leave it." He looked sad, but he understood. He came more often instead. Each time he arrived, he hugged me and whispered, "I am sorry, Dad." Each time I replied, "I forgive you, son." But forgiveness did not erase the scars. I began to think more about life. I asked myself, what is the meaning of success if family is forgotten? What is the value of money if love is lost? I realized the truth. Parents give their entire lives to their children. They sacrifice food, sleep, comfort, and dreams. All they ask in return is love and time. Nothing more. I decided to speak this lesson wherever I could. When neighbors visited, I told them, "Do not forget your parents. They are not forever. One day when you turn around, they may be gone, and you will live with regret." Some nodded with tears in their eyes. Some promised they would call their children that very night. I felt maybe my story could save others from the same pain. Daniel himself began helping old people in the city. He told me, "Dad, I cannot change what I did to Mom, but I can make sure no other parent feels like she did." He started visiting old homes. He gave money. He spoke to lonely parents. He told them, "Your children may be busy, but you are not alone." One day he said, "Dad, I told my friends about Mom. I told them how she waited and how I was too late." They cried when they heard it. They said they will never do the same to their parents. I looked at him and whispered, "Then maybe your mom's pain has become her gift to the world." He nodded with tears in his eyes. As for me, I am old now. My time will also come. But before I leave, I want to leave this lesson behind. If you're a son or a daughter listening to me now, remember this. Do not wait for tomorrow. Tomorrow may never come. Call your parents today. Visit them today. Hold their hands today. Because one day when you finally decide to go, it may be too late. That is my story. The story of love, of waiting, of regret, and of change. The story of a son who forgot his parents and a father who still forgave him. Please don't forget to like, share, subscribe to our channel English for Day.